Wow. Hey, much love and respect. Pura vida, mi gente. Appreciate you guys being here, taking the time to watch the videos. As always, thank you for doing that. Today, guys, we're gonna just continue reading a book we actually started reading the other day. I think that we were able to pull out a lot of good things from that book, and we always touched the hijack when we saw it. But in general, I think we had a lot of good fun with it, and a lot of things to make us think and correlate with what we have researched before. So I wanted to definitely get back into it and read chapter 2 and see what else we can find in this book, what it says. Of course, this book has a lot of different sources for what they write in it to back them up. So this is another reason why I like these kind of books. Again, I had this book for years and we just started reading it the other day. So this is basically part one, the first chapter of this book that we did the other day. You guys see 3 days ago already. And we have a lot of good drop. We had a lot of good fun reading it together. So in case you missed it, make sure to catch that video out so you're not behind on what we already know about the book. We're going to read again chapter 2 today. So let's go right to it. So again, this book is called America, the background of Columbus, being a survey of the revelations of science with respect to the Western Hemisphere and its peoples before its unveiling by Columbus, by Jennings C. Weiss. Okay, you see all the titles. Virginia Academy of Science, American Association for the Advancement of Science. All right, and this is from the 1940s, I believe 1945, as it says here. Okay. So we're on page 57 of this book, and it says, Chapter 2, The Language of America, the True Cross, all right, the True Cross, the geographical story of how the earth was populated, the Garden of Eden, and the expulsion of Aish and Aisha, all right? So, let's see what it's saying. Again, we pull out the babies and we dodge the hijacks, okay? But when it comes to the language of America, saying it, the True Cross, remember what, we learned about the name America and the cross and the dragon and everything. So it's kind of correlating already. So it says in logic, the ancient science of God's word is to be found the lance of truth. Having possessed ourselves of the key to Gia's graph, guided by Genesis, the Katapata, Brahmana, and modern science, we ponder the bird-shaped continent of the primary Adam's peak, the myth of the phoenix, the egg in the mouth of Cenobis, and the moon stones with the deepest interest. All right, so all those things he kind of went over in part one. So make sure to catch that. For if it is plain that Cenobis represented the cosmic man created by Manu, it is equally plain why in the ancient portrayals the crescent, the sacred lotus, and the lamb were associated with both Isis and the Virgin Mary, okay? And again, those two go back to the corn mother nourishment. Corn mother nourishment. And who is Queen Mu, or little sister Isis? Remember? We do not feel the least sacrilegious when we read the 7 books of the Christian father Lactantius, centuries before the coming of Jesus. So make it make sense, right? He just said, he's calling him a Christian father, but he's saying he existed and wrote books way before the coming of so-called Jesus. So how is he a Christian? Because I thought Christians were all about Jesus. So we already know, based on my thought videos, that there was the whole Christian thing is something else. Okay? But let's see what it's saying here. He's admitting, right, that there was so-called Christians before so-called Jesus here, right? That Christian scholar pointed out that the soul of the universe was designated by the Greek adepts as Christos. So what is Christos? Supposedly, by these Greek adepts, the soul, or the soul of the universe, that energy, while a Christos implies a sacred shrine of the mysteries, whose adepts were designated as Christos, all right? You guys understand what he's saying here? So it kind of goes into our thought video. Again, there was a lot of the early so-called Christians were actually followers of Serapis. Serapis comes from the Hermetics. Serapis is thought in another form. Hermetism, Hermetics, Greeks were very heavy into that. So it makes sense that the Greek adepts they're mentioning here, right? There were a lot of these were designated as Christos, right? A sacred shrine they followed. It was some time, he assures us, before the name Christos was applied to Jesus of Nazareth, right? Christos. They try to say that means the Messiah or the Christ, meaning the soul of the universe, huh? That energy, that Christ energy of Hawa, that soul of Hawa, that spirit of Hawa, huh? That what they saying? So he exclaimed that the Greek Christos was derived from the Aramic chi or phi, chi or phi, which again we have gone over that in my thought videos, a little more complex, right? Which appears in the graph of Ea more frequently perhaps than any other name in the gazetteer. With this clue, we find that the Tibetan language, wherein the verb chi-ti means to think, is a strange mixture of many others, tracing in part, at least to the Aramaic upon which Sanskrit was based. And at once we find it that ti in Sanskrit means him. In addition to the chi was alphabetically symbolized in the Aramaic script by the pictograph X, displaying the avars of the spiritual man in the celestial and terrestrial spheres, of which the V corresponds to the spread eagle and the two closed wings of the imperial eagle, representing in Greco-Roman symbology the spiritual empire of Zeus and the terrestrial empire of his brother Poseidon, the god of the ocean, respectively. Okay, so again, going back to many old videos, especially the ones we read in the book Researches into the Lost History of America. Who is Zeus? Who is Poseidon? How does it relate to ancient America? Remember, now they're saying the X and the Chi all symbolically. I broke this down really good in my thought videos. So make sure to watch those. It is part of Hermetism. Okay. Also, we find that the symbol of the spread avars appearing on the casques of the gods, the Vikings, spiritual rulers, Danites, right? Swarti Danites, the Valkyr. So the spiritual rulers of the Vikings, they're saying the Valkyr, the Chinese, and the Japanese dragons was common to all peoples of prehistoric times, okay? The serpent, the feathered serpent, the dragons. Thus, just as they appear in the winged scarab of the Egyptian, symbolizing the spiritual wings of Sinubis, conveying the earth, the egg of life, we find them in the totem poles of the Eskimo, and in sites on countless effigy mounds of prehistoric America, okay? They're finding all these symbols again in ancient America or prehistoric America, the true old world. Man, we've gone over all this info. Remember, what is the egg of the world? The egg of the world was the Americas. Remember, we read that in the researches. There's a whole chapter we read in the researches of to the Lost History of America book. Make sure to catch that playlist, guys, okay? Then two among the Pueblo groups of the Rio Grande, just north of Chihuahua, right? You see the Chi of Ki or Chi or Fi, right? Chihuahua, which they say means the son of the two houses of heaven and earth. Chihuahua. That's what they're saying it means. We find a splendid incised eagle with closed wings. All right, the same symbol is right there in Chihuahua. From all this, it is evident that the Aramaic chi and che, the Greek Christos and Krestos, the Sanskrit ti and te, are equivalents, that chi or ki, Christos, and ti were none other than the Brahmanic Atma. In other words, the Aramaic was that 11 or xi, and the Sanskrit ti or chi, Aramaic chi, are pictographs of the philosophic conception of the spiritual man bound to the cross of matter, to which relates the myth of the fire bringer. The fire bringer. Again, just want to point out, see all the sources. She always got sources, or he, right? as sources, this author. So this relates again to the myth of the fire bringer, common to every clime. In short, the Greek Prometheus and the fallen angel Lucifer of the Hebraic Kabbalah, cast out of heaven for the rebellions, implying the revolution of nature that brought the divine spirit into matter, were one and the same. You guys hear that? So, we dodged the hijack a little bit with the whole Lucifer thing. That's a name applied later on. There's a whole story about where they got Lucifer from. That wasn't always the name of the ancient of ancients who fell. All right. So they're saying, hey, even though Prometheus is the same thing, that's what they're saying. Remember how it relates to the Americas. I got a whole video on that and Prometheus, right? Moreover, the whole mystery of Atma, which is vital to the history of America, all right? The Brahmaic Atma is what? Vital to the history of America, has been fully explored and has been shown to have been embodied in the Amarakosha, Amarakansha, Amarakosha, Amarakosha, the spirit of America, the spirit of America, right? Isn't that the same for Massachusetts, right? The spirit of America, that's the same for Massachusetts. Amarakosha, you see that? That's a word that they use in Hindustan, Amarakosha. Why do they use that if they're talking about the spirit of America? And in the Aramaic, Hebrew, Sanskrit, Egyptian, Greek, monks, Norse, and Semitic scripts in which this mystery also was embodied. Okay, all these ancient languages come from a true mother tongue that wasn't confused. There was only one person, one people whose tongue was not confused after the Tower of Babel building. That was Eber and his people, because he separated himself from that, from building that and participating in that. And his people, which eventually was, their language was called Hebrew, which is the same or a form of what Aramaic is, because Aram was a son of Shem, which he spoke also what Eber spoke, but it had already gone through some changes, right? But it was still very original, the Aramaic and all these other so-called ancient languages. But again, Sanskrit's coming out of that. Nor it is possible to understand the graph of Gia and the history of America without the key to the philosophic cult upon which the nomenclature employed by the ancient geographers was based. At the very outset, we must understand what is disclosed by the researchers into the tree cult. The word Tara, appearing in the place names of every clime meaning tree. Tara meaning tree, Tree cult, Tara, Torah, Tara, right? Like in Ireland, right? Tara, They're saying the meaning tree implies a shrine from which the primordial wisdom, philosophy embodied in the serpent cult was imparted. Serpent cult or culture. Culture. Cult, Culture. In other words, it was at the sites of the sacred trees or the Christos. Remember, that meant a sacred shrine, a mysterious sacred shrine. These sacred trees are Christos. That brick and stone temples arose, towns and cities evolved, and finally the churches and the great medieval cathedrals were erected under the direction of the Freemasons, right? And remember our relationship and the origins of Freemasonry, how it goes back into ancient America as well, how the Mayas were practicing all this, what they're talking about literally right now, right? And we already read that Freemasonic book where they're telling you if you want to give credit to anybody for Freemasonry, it's to America. They literally admitted that, right? I've shown you guys these sources, right? This in truth was how new names of places began. It's talking a lot of deep stuff here, So we got, it's hard for everybody to understand what it's trying to say, but the more we read into this, right, and the more you catch up on older videos, you start seeing the correlation of what they're trying to say. With this fact in mind, it behooves the intelligent, whatever their prejudices may be, to consider what those who designed the Aramaic alphabet and the graph of Gia, in which it is employed, had to say about the evolution of civilization. Unlike modern Western scientists, they did not tell us that man evolved from an androgen mammalian millions of years ago, and then began the story of civilization a few years back. All right. Yeah, we ain't coming out of apes, is what he's trying to say. They don't talk about that. He's literally telling they don't talk about that. Unlike modern Western scientists, they don't talk about no uh, ape ancestry, okay, out of Africa theories. They conceive of the present as the fifth in a series of root races with two more to come in the present vast round of time, each producing the seeds of its successor. All right. So now we're going to that the theosophical ideas, right? Oh, the root races. But when we talk about a fifth in series of root races, we're talking about a fifth like age, right? A fifth world. What has happened? Cataclysms. There has been cycles. We have to have started over again, not one time, but many times, and that we can definitely grasp. Okay. Producing seeds of its successors each time. The first they declared was a senseless, sexless, ethereal creation out of the lunar essence of the first Manu. They're talking about some of these ancient texts, right? Individually, of huge volume and the color of the moon. This race constituted, they say, the mist into which God in Genesis is said to have breathed a living soul. All right. So the whole idea of us modern humans thinking about race, applying that concept to these ancient texts, right? So that's what I'm saying. Root race, race. That's a wrong concept, race. But we get what they're saying. The first kind of people, the first kind of creation that is in this first so-called age, right? Is what they're telling us, where God breathed into the living soul. After the fire bringer had fallen from heaven into a man, a semi-material, darker colored race. We can't make this up, right? Even though it has nothing to do, we're not talking about complexions. They're letting you know these first so-called people, even the fallen, he's saying, even the fallen became man and they were darker colored race, right? Smaller in size, bisexual, huh? And therefore amphibious in the true sense of occupying two planes, evolved during the secondary. You guys see this? Now going with evolution. So that's why I said we dodged the hijack a little bit. But again, she's just quoting these ancient mythological texts, which they already had added a bit of hijack to the original sources that were coming out of the America, the original teachings. Okay. They reproduced after the manner of certain plants through spores and are said to have furnished the material man who was taken and put in the garden. All right. Now we got the second creation. Huh. Now the third race, they're saying, also said to have been born in the secondary, consisted of red, hairy androgynes. Okay. Again, we dodge the hijack, guys, and we pull out the babies who evolved in Ruta. So this third race, they're saying, hey, they're from North Atlantic continent. Remember what we read in part 1 about that? Literally, most of it was in America, this North Atlantic continent, which connected all the way to Western, Northern Europe. Right, the British Isles was connected to this and all that. So there's the third race was this the red man Harry. See, do you want to be considered Harry, or we still talking about couple colored tribes? You see, so that's why I say we dodged the hijack. How do they know all this stuff? How would they have a time machine, or what did she read? And she got the sources, so you guys can see it now. 13. All right, so she's right here. So she's going off this, and before that, just want to show you. Yeah, you see the true cross. She got where she's getting all this stuff from, right? Look at this. History of classical Greek literature, Theogony, Hesiod, Manual of Mythology. You see what I'm saying? The earliest known source possessed the form of the Tao. See, so there's a lot of dropping even in the footnotes, but I just want to show you, she's trying to correlate what she's learning and reading and all these books. Okay. So, third race, she's saying, came out of the North Atlantic continent, smaller than their predecessors and reproducing by eggs, like all hermaphrodite mammalia, you see? So, is that where you come from? This is what I'm saying. We dodged the hijack with the added mythology. This race furnished some of the giants mentioned in Genesis And the six male and female mythical Greek titans begat by Uranus out of Gaia, all right? All that relating to America and its mythology that, it was a real history that was turned into mythology. Titans were tall people, right? Who's the mound builders? Then they find all these giant skeletons in them. Who's the true titans when it comes to real physical human history? They are said to have furnished Adam first, or Adam I, and according to the zodiacal calendar of the Brahmin Tamils, underwent the separation of the sexes about 18 million years ago. All right, you see? So, we dodged the hijack, and we're reading a little added mythology here. We're not getting it from the Mayas themselves, right? Where they copied it from. Who is the ancient Hindus or Brahmins? Next came the fourth race, still smaller and originally of a brown color. So they say, oh, Kurimeo, you're trying to make everybody black. I mean, most of the indigenous people of the world were of a brown color. They too were giants. Finally, about 5 million years ago, the present race evolved in Ruta, or the North Atlantic continent, which in general was in North America. Of it, the first to appear were red, followed by true Negroids, and the Mongoloids, who mixed with other sub-races to form the white race in the regions of the White Sea. This is what I'm saying. This is Theosophical Society added modern-day concepts of race. That's why we dodged the hijack. I mean, you guys, I'm reading it for you, but I dodged a lot of this hijack, guys. Okay? You see how they separated red from Negroids, true Negroids? Like, this is what I'm telling you. That's what I'm telling you, dodge that. What Mongoloids? Mongoloids, that's a derogatory word. Again, Mongol meant great or great empire, mogul. And people were not called Mongols until like the 1900s. Yeah, you got to learn the history of these words. This is what I'm saying. The whole race concept in the 1800s by eugenicists and all these racist people, actually. Yeah, Germans. So, this theosophical ideas, because this is what you read in Blavatsky's writings, literally, the root races, this is literally what you read, this is what she's pushing, okay? And this is what she's reading, or this author's reading. It says, originally, they too were giants, but gradually, by reason of altered conditions, they lost their original size. So, we can definitely pull out a lot of babies, right? We know there was giants. I mean, what are they finding in the mounds? This is what I'm telling you. Each of these races was supposed to have been saved out of the sea of time by Brahma in the form of Viva Sat, implying the reincarnated soul of Atma. Again, mythology, but there's a true history between all this. It's just not being told correctly or interpreted correctly when reading these ancient texts. To account for their enlightenment, they conceived of Dekhat, of avatars, to whom the 10 generations of the Adamic race in the fifth cycle correspond. Appropriately, they were named and symbolized according to the character and environment of the successive root races, as here shown. All right, so there you go. So it says Matsya, fish, cosmic sea; Kurma, tortoise, amphibious age, turtle island; Baraha, boar, upheavals of the earth; Narasimha, lion, the king of man who ruled the earth, lion, Judah; Varuna, dwarf, present race in its infancy. So we're the dwarves, are saying. Ramu, northern man, heliocentric cycle, 30,000 BC. Rama Lunas, normal man, historic age of the Mahabharata, 5,000 BC. Okay, so again, we're just pulling out the babies, all right? We're pulling out the babies here. Look at what it says here. Vivasat equals spirit, essence. Sat, or Sat, serpent, the first hymn. Avatar, the first spirit cross. Atma, reincarnate, okay? Just a little theosophical stuff in Hindu Vedic teachings, right? And we got number 8, Ramakrishna, normal man, died 3000 BC. Then you got Gautama Buddha, right? Guatemala, Buddha. Buddha's mom is Maya, who is the real Buddha. Normal man, born between 562 and 552 BC. So who's really keeping track? Where are they getting this from, guys? Like, look, 17, Man of the white horse, normal man, yet to appear. Man of the white horse, yet to appear. The white man hasn't appeared, even after all these cycles, right? That's what they're saying here. It says, number 17 down in the footnote, only Hindus and Brahmins who were converted to Buddhism by Ashoka accepted Gautama as an avatar. All right. Okay, so let's keep reading. Now it says, the actual human agency through which the wisdom philosophy was conveyed during the cycles represented by the avatars and by the five atoms. The five atoms. Oh, I thought it was only one. There's five atoms they're saying was the mythical Prince Maya. Oh, now we're talking some real stuff right here. Check it out. All right. See what he's listen to what they're saying. During the cycles represented by the avatars and by the fifth atoms was the mythical Prince Maya. Was he really mythical or was he a real person? Prince Maya, huh? Who are the Maya? To whom all the wisdom of the material man was ascribed. You guys see that? All the wisdom of the material man was ascribed to who? Prince Maya or Mayas. Accordingly, in the Ramayana, right? We've broken this actually. This has to do with America, guys, and the Mayas. That's why it's called Ramayana, which was compiled about 400 BC by the historian Valmiki at the dictation of the Brahmin high priest Naruna of Ajodhya, while Ezra was compiling the Septuagint. It is said that the Maya were a secret brotherhood of missionaries, listen, who had sailed the seven seas from an age when the sun had not risen. Who? The Mayas were what? Seafaring, right? Civilizing the world. All right, matching. I told you, America, the true old world. This is when we start pulling out the babies. You see how it correlates with other researches we've done, right? So they were supposedly a secret brotherhood. Like I say, what is a Phoenician? A secret brotherhood of seafarers. Well, who were they really talking about then? Maya? Ha! Who had sailed the seven seas from an age when the sun had not risen. What do they mean about that? This, of course, implied the cycle of culture, when the stellar and lunar cults prevailed and before the heliocentric philosophy of the solar cult evolved. Although originally the name Maya implied nothing more of race than Adam, and the Aryans, today we find a distinct people called Mayas in Yucatan, and whose secret societies, the prehistoric mysteries, are still enshrined. So they're saying, oh, it don't relate, but it does relate. They say, it don't mean a race. Well, we're not talking about race, talking about a people here, right? What is Maya? They didn't call themselves Maya, that's true. They had many different names. That's what we call them today, but that was their empire and the motherland, the Mayak, the first land out of the waters, right? And Aryan means noble. Aryan means noble. It doesn't mean white. So they're saying today we find a distinction. Who they talking about? People that are called Maya today? Well, we're not talking about, ancient people here, right? Ancient Americans who went around the world. He just said Maya were the secret brotherhood that went around. Well, where they come from then? Where these Mayas come from? They are the same as the ancient Mayas of the Americas. Okay? Even though he's letting you know that these Mayas of later on, that are in the Yucatan, they preserved this mysteries, these prehistoric mysteries, right? That goes into with our Leplejon book, Sacred Mysteries of the Maya and Quiche, and the whole Freemasonry thing, all this secret doctrine, mysterious doctrine, as they call it. Moreover, their religion was identical with that of the Mayas of India. The Mayas of India, right? You see, of Hindustan, you mean the Nagas, right? The Nagas, like he said in page 1, right? I'm in chapter 1, right? So he's saying 21, the sacred mysteries of the Mayas and Quiche. Look at that, guys. Leplejon, look who she's quoting. That's what I'm saying. She has studied things. So if she read the sacred mysteries of the Maya, then she should already know America's a true old world, you see? Look what she's quoting. The Ma also appears as a prefix over 300 native tribal names, as well as in the Massachusetts and Yamasee of Georgia. All right, look at the connection it's making. Wow, look at all that. Look at the footnote here, guys. Wow. So again, I got this book on my Patreon. If you want to actually own it and read it, you know, with your own at your own pace, in your own time, and look it over the footnotes and everything. So, moreover, their religion was identical, just like the Mayas in Yucatan, to what the Mayas of India, the same people. Who's the Nagas? Significantly, the name of these primordial teachers appears in Roma and also is preserved by John Mayen Land, which is 70 degrees north and 10 degrees west, just as in the Marathi today called the maritime provinces of Siberia, inasmuch as the Katapata Brahmana and modern science both fix Amarava, Amara, Amaru, Amaravati as part of Eden. What? Amaru is part of Eden, Amara is part of Eden, and the mythical Mount Meru. Mythical, huh? Add an A right here. What do you get? You get Ameru, Ameruka, Amerukan, Ameru of the pre-Brahmanic gods stood at the top of the world. We may well visit this sacrosanct realm known to the Greeks as the sunny realm of Eros, the god of love, of which John Mayen and the Marathi are relics. For these were in truth the Tartarus of Greek mythology, into which Uranus cast his Titan twins. Again, all this relating to ancient America. We've broken this down a lot. How odd that Scalp Mount should mark the head of Ireland. Wow. Whence the Giant's Causeway leads to Three Island. From there we come to Scalpa flow of the head of Scotland. Strange as this may seem, here too science steps in to explain these names. Scalping was a mystical rite practiced by the Scythians. All right, we've gone over this. The Scythians were scalping people just like the American Indians, and the Scythians also had mounds, and they buried their people in the mounds, and a lot of them, they found giant bones in them, just like in the Americas. Who's the Scythians? Or the Sakai, or the Saxons? All the same. That just means sons of Isaac. Who's the Scythians, right? This is what I'm telling you guys. See how it all comes together. So they were scalping just like the Indians, right? Down to historic times, as well as by the Siouan and Muskegon tribes of America, though not by their Algonquin neighbors, nor even by the Iroquoian, with the exception of the Mohawks. All right, so scalping just like the American Indians, right? Passing from the Scalpa flow to the Shetlands, where we find a place named Papa, just as in the Orkneys. From there we come to the Spitsbergen group, 80 north, in the Svalbard Sea, 20 degrees, 30 east. Although barely mentioned in Western histories, these islands possess geographical names of unmistakable import. Thence it is but a step to Eosinfa, Seembla, 80 degrees north, 7 degrees east. Just to the south is Novaya, Seembla, 7 degrees north, 7 degrees east, and to the east is Seivranoya, Seembla at 100 degrees east. From these signs of sea in the land of midnight sun, where once waved magnolias and palms, now lying beneath Greenland's icy mountains. Remember Sealand? That's where you get New Zealand from. Sealand was the northern Arctic zones, right? They're telling you that in these places there was once magnolias and palm trees, which they have found fossilized, guys, in Greenland and the icy mountains there. The Earth presents a very different aspect from that with which Western history has made us familiar. All right? There's a different history to what they tell us, so-called Western history. All right? It presents a different aspect. Instead of the continents being separated by vast expanses of water, they appear like radials consistent of countless stepping stones from Sealand to the antipodes of New Zealand. Today we know that Labrador, which once included Greenland, Newfoundland, Novaya, Scotia, Iceland, Friesland, the Faroe Islands, Friesland and Sealand in the Netherlands, Sealand and Denmark and Karelia were all once part of Sealand, okay? All that was connected, guys, going all the way into the North America, the North American continent. All right, Laurasia. Also, we know that the original pantheon of the Babylonians included 7 gods, including the supreme god Se, corresponding to the Greek Zeus, all with Maya names. They all got Maya names, guys. Again, all these gods, on the pantheon of these gods, they have a relationship, geographical relationship, or actual real person relationship to the Americas, a historic person or a real geographical place in the Americas, in ancient America. Okay? So they're saying even all these names got Maya names. The meridians of the Speaking Mountain are marked by the Tripoli, the triad of the polar lotus, the circle of Mycenae and Argos, the Sphinx, the pyramids of Giza and Saqqara, and also by Memphis, while Mount Ararat, the Tau Shina, Nippur, Akkad, Samarra, Babylon, Erech, Ur, and Nineveh all mark the meridians of Io, Sinfa, Sembla, okay? Where these places were in ancient times is not the same where they put them today in modern times, all right? There's phantoms and duplicates, all right? America, the true old world. In the same way, Old Merv, 40 degrees north, 62 degrees east in the Karakum, and the oldest cities of Irania may be related to Novaya Sembla, while Kara Kurum in the Gobi marks the meridian of Sivrano Sembla. On the map of America, we see Arizona, right? Arizona, Venezuela, and Amazonia. Also, we know Labrador, the sacred peak of Brazo in New Mexico, the Brazos in Texas, Brasa in Argentina, next to Brasilia, Brasa in Austria, and Brahmaputra in India. All related, the philology. Therefore, it is plain why the Sunni, the Mayaks, and the Aztecs all claim their ancestors came from Acitlan. All right, they all what? From Acitlan, add the TIS after that. Acitlantes. Look, Acitlantes, Atlantis. It is equally plain why both the Gauls and the Nagas of Havila in India cherish similar tartans. They all wear the tartans. Where's that coming from? All right, the Mayas had tartans, basically, as the symbols of Tartarus, where the Eskimo ancestors of the Irish Scoti and the Basque. See, this is what I'm saying. Ancient people not the same as modern ones we think of. The Tartars and the Turanian Tartars evolved. This is deep right here. Indeed, just as in the Babylonian god Se, the memory of Sealand, the Greek Zeus, and the Roman Janus, Eovus, is preserved, the sacred lotus is symbolized by the 3 Siamblas. Also, we see an Ion Sifa, Siambla, why the Ionians claim to be descended from Phoenix, as well as from the beautiful nymph, Io, who was chained by Zeus into a white heifer, because of Hera's jealousy. Yet this is but one myth that becomes readily explicable against the background of the polar lotus. See, he's telling you, but this myth means something else, and it's actually a geographical place. This is what we've been showing you in other videos, right? And a lot of these geographical places go back to the Americas, not just the Arctic, but the Arctic that's attached really close to the Americas. What sign do we see at Kurma, the semi-material man to whom the word Kurd is to be traced? Reading our geograph, we know that in the cycle of the second root race, the Maya conveyed the ark of Ea to Ku or Kui, whose name is well preserved. But if the prefix Ku is to be found in countless older tribal names in America, all right, including Kuitari, which are the Pawnee, Kuitari, or the Kusha, the Creeks, the Kusha, right? The Kusa, right? Kusha, so-called Creeks, Kultuwao, Kutuwao, Cherokee. I mean, this one we're gonna look into the Kultuwao because the Cherokee was a confederation of different Indians and also included Black Europeans that were running away or marrying with these Indians, and they created a whole confederacy. A lot of Cherokee are actually Eastern Siouan tribes, Algonquin tribes, from the Powhatan tribes that got misclassified. So who's the Kultu? Wow, something to look into that. Either way, right? And then you got the Kun, who are the Yuma, and then you got Kukua, San Marcos tribes, showing the Arctic origin of the Americans. The Arctic origin, right? Huh. Well, where was that Tower of Babel? Where was the oldest land that isn't the Laurentian Mountains in Quebec? So very close to the Arctic. So did everybody come out of the Arctic though? Like a very interesting thought here. And the original name of Chantilun or Chantun was Cook. The most interesting thing disclosed by the gazetteer about this race are the original names of Kurum and Kurdinyas, applied to Mount Carmel and Babylon, respectively. Mm. This, of course, like the name Kurum near Carmel, accords with the claim that the first material man formed by God was put in the Garden of Eden, where a great mystery has ever surrounded the holy caves of Carmel, whence arose the voices of Elijah and Elijah. The third race were the Vara, of whom Vardo at the North Cape of Europe, Barota on the Kara Sea, and the Varangians of Sweden, and countless Varas in America, preserve the name. At this time, according to the graph, there were two races on the earth, the Ku and Vara. In Genesis 3, it is told how at last man fell victim to the serpent, representing, among other things, the evil and human nature. The evil, huh? The serpent, is that the real or is it the jackal? In the end, even Adam the third Adam was perverted by the evil Lilith. Lilith, how they try to make Lilith evil. Was she really evil or what was going on, before Adam? There was other women there. Lilith is one of them, who has been identified with the black magicians of the lunar cult. Was she just doing things that the fallen had taught her, and she became kind of like a so-called witch or whatever that associated to evil? The lunar cult of the black magicians. Who's all these people? Because the whole earth had been overrun by the Adamites of the third cycle. Adam the third called his wife Eve in the tertiary. All right, that's when he's saying it happened, the tertiary age. It was possible for the Vara to pass freely over the earth. People can walk all over the earth when it was all connected or closer, or there was land bridges, right? Therefore, today their names is preserved in Baragua, all right? Veragua. That's literally Costa Rica and Panama. That was the nation or an older name of Costa Rica and Panama, Veragua. The Vara Queen where dwelt the Quiche. The Quiche, huh? They were all the way down there in Costa Rica and Panama? Huh. Veragua, huh? Christos of the Queen. Christos of the Queen. So they're adding the Christos and all this hijack to all this stuff, right? Indeed, the identities of the tertiary Quinlan language of Scandinavia and that of Central America were inevitable. All right, it's the same, the identities. With Guinea and Guyana, right? In America and Africa, right? Connected, the same is true with respect to the common gods, myths, and tongues of Africa and Brazil, all right? They all have a common origin, but it's more on this side of the earth, not the other way around, not out of Africa, but into Africa. That's where the relationship is, right? He says 37, The Origin and Evolution of Man by Albert Churchward. African Discovery of America by Weiner. We got to read these books, right? The Origin and Evolution of Human Race, Maya and Brazilian Origins, Weiner, The Picture of the Negroid Patagonians. The Negroid Patagonians. All right, the original Patagonians were so-called black. This is what I've been trying to tell you. People say I'm trying to make everybody black. So the picture of the Negroid Patagonians and the Melanites given by Captain Cook, Darwin, we've shown these images. Wallace and others suggest the type of society in the Tertiary age. So these Patagonians, right? Darwin went over to South America before he wrote his book, on evolution, right? He said that when he saw the fulgioids, I forget the whole name, the fulgels of Patagonia, he said that these gotta be a depiction or a representation of one of the oldest people of the earth. All right, these so-called Negroid Patagonians. So look at all these sources, right? Definitely more books that we're gonna get into. I mean, look at number 35. Wow, let's read 35 here. It says Eve was the same as the pre-Hebraic Ebba, the Greek Hera, the Roman Juno, all these people associated with corn, just in case you don't know as well, right? The Egyptian Mu or Mut, and the Polynesian Queen Queen Mu. Listen, guys, remember in Leopard Jones' book, right? Queen Mu, he's saying that might be Eve, that might be Adam and Eve, her brother Prince Cole, and the whole story is just being retold a different way. Listen to what he's saying here. There's a Polynesian Queen Mu too, just like in the Maya, from whom the name Lemuria, was derived. Her name appears in Siranovaya, Sembla, and also in Evrest or Gorasanku, the mother. Eve equals Gia, the spirit, the earth. This was the age of Mother Mu, Ma or Mut, of the lunar cult, who was referred to in both the Book of the Dead, right, in Egyptian texts, and the Popol Vuh. See Queen Mu in the Egyptian Things by Le Plongeon. All right, we read this book. All right, you see what I'm saying? Queen Mu, that's all Mayan, guys. Where's the origin of all that? Yeah, they all got it, but where did it originate? Things get transferred. It all becomes mythology eventually. Thus, the name of Queen Mu is preserved in the Australian Queensland, the Queenland of Scandinavia, Mozambique, Saqqara in Egypt. The Saqqara pyramid is a step pyramid. Been trying to tell you, Americans built that. Palenque in Guatemala, the Mosquito Coast of Central America, the Piquitani in Peru, the Piscataqua in Massachusetts, all right, showing the relationship between the Basque of the Pyrenees, the Basque. Listen, I told you the Basque most likely coming from the Americas, and the Quiches of Peru and Central America. Wow. The Basque, huh? Who are the ancient Basque? Being a wise bird that sees well in the moonlight, logically the owl was taken by the Lemurians as the symbol of Queen Mu. The name of Lemuria is preserved by the Mu stone of the coast of Tasmania and Musara, the realm of the Tamils, Fua, Mulaku, on the equator, Musos and the Andes, the Mosquito Coast, and also by the Muros of Colombia, the Muscogee of the Gulf States, and the Mohawks of Oregon, and the Mohawks, all right? So, interesting. Even the footnotes has a lot of drop, right? So, where were we? Eventually, the fourth root race appeared, and also Adam, the fourth one, they're saying, who with his wife are said in Genesis 3:21 to have been clothed with coats of skin representing, among other things, the chim, or sacerdotal garb of the priesthood. And the cycle of Nara Singha, the lion avatar, this race furnished the Kara, whose name may be traced over the earth from the Kara Sea, especially prominent in the Arctic part of the North Atlantic continent, whence it extended southward. The mission of Narasingha was not only to reveal the solar cult to men, but to overthrow evil. To divert the perverted third race from the worldwide sway it had asserted, the lion was to tear the earth to pieces. In course of time, that is about 5 million years ago, the present race appeared in Ruta. Again, that was the North Atlantic continent, North America, going into Europe, whereupon the cycle of Varuna began. The first of this race were the Red Naga, the Red Nagas, red man, huh? Copper-colored Nagas, who furnished the Indo-Europeans. Who are the progenitors of what? Indo-Europeans. I told you that don't mean white people. Who was the first Europeans, guys? Remember, we got a video on that. with both the degraded Vada and Kurma in the Garden of Eden, as shown in Genesis. There was grave danger not only of the Vada perpetuating the perverted philosophy represented by the polytheism of the original Babylonian pantheon, but of resorting to war to expel Adam, the fourth one. Therefore, the degraded Adamites of the third race were sent forth from the garden to till the ground from whence their ancestors had been taken, implying Lanka. Implying, that's what he's saying. He said that's in Lanka, right? So that is the end of this chapter, guys. I know that this was a very short chapter, but a lot to think about, a lot of information to discern, especially. You know, pull out the babies, you got to dodge all the hijacks. And if you have been following me for years and been keeping up with all the studies and some of these ancient America videos and how it relates to the rest of the world, then you would kind of see the corroboration of what they're trying to tell you here, right? And how deep the Maya play a role, or ancient Americans, in this, okay? So we will leave it here for today. We got another chapter coming, right? The chapter 3, the flaming sword of the cherubim, all right? It might get interesting here. Look at that, Algonquin American, okay? Yeah. So we're going to get into a lot of these sources too, that she quoted, after we're done with this book, and keep digging, right? We're going to keep digging, all right? Again, this was the book America, the background of Columbus, being a survey of the revelations of science with respect to the Western Hemisphere and its peoples before its unveiling by Columbus, by Jennings C. Wise. Again, we read chapter 2 today. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed the reading, the quick reading today. Appreciate you guys sticking around all the way to the end. Appreciate anybody that tuned in right to the live. And appreciate all my supporters on Patreon, my channel members. I got exclusive channel member videos, if you want to support me that way. Also, my Patreon page has exclusive books and videos. You want to support me like that as well. Appreciate all my moderators as well. Thank you for tuning in and making time to be here and read with me today, this chapter 2. Appreciate it very much. Hope you enjoyed it and see the corroboration from past videos. Okay. Much love and respect. Pura vida, mi gente. Hawaii.